Greetings, Pilgrims. Welcome to another episode of the Polygon Pilgrimage, and today we're going to be beginning our weapon series. So you can see here I have a couple of things set up, and I know, lots of lines and boxes, and it's all confusing. Don't worry, we're going to step through everything together. So as you can see over here in my hierarchy, I do have, under our FPS controller, under our first-person character, I have this object called weapon slots, and there's a slot for every type of weapon. And then we have a weapon camera. We're going to go over all of that. And then we have our weapon here in the scene. And what is this craziness? This is the animator. And we're going to talk today about how to create your very own weapon animations. Now, this is in lieu of having, the hand models you see a lot with FPS games. And it's, pulling out the magazine, reloading the gun. I don't have any of that because, honestly, it costs some money to get that. And I don't really have money to burn for just that for this example. But I can show you the principle behind this. And later, if you have those animations, you can just plug and play those into here, okay? So no big deal. We're going to learn a bit today, and then later when you get those fancy assets, or you make your own, because I know you're amazing, then you can make your own and put them in here, and you can just plug and play, and I'll show you how that works too. So let's go ahead and hit play. I'm going to show you what we have going on so far. So I do have a script applied to my weapons here. I'm not going to go over that today. That will be next time for the scripting. But today we're going to do with the animation. So as you can see, when I scroll my mouse here, I'm rapidly switching between my guns. And this is just a very simple script. This is on the Brackeys tutorial. I will be linking to him next time we talk about that. He deserves all the credit for that. But I'm going to take it further for you and show you how you can apply that with the animations we're going to make today. So anyway, so when I scroll over to the rifle, you'll see that this one's actually animated. When I go shotgun, rifle, the rifle actually comes out, and there it is. Now it's in this idling state. And if you look at the bottom of the screen here, this is our animation tree. So right now that one in the middle, this long animation that's playing, is the idle. So if I just kind of sit still, you'll see the weapon kind of sways a little bit. When you're holding something heavy and you kind of shift your weight and you settle a little bit, this is kind of what's going on. We just kind of simulate that. We just kind of rock it a little bit back and forth. And you have this whole structure here. So we're going to talk about this structure. But watch what happens if I escape out of this and I have a couple of variables here. So I'm going to tell it, let's zoom in. So I hit this and boom, we're scoped in, right? I say, never mind, go back. You'll notice that on the bottom when I do these things, the little line there is filling out because that's saying it's playing this animation. And so what I've done is these lines in between are triggers or open and close gates to say, now you can go do this thing. So now I'm going to tell it to shoot. So now we're doing the shooting animation. Now there's no sound effects, there's no muzzle flash right now, but the idea is that the gun is shaking, we're firing at the enemy, right? And you can see how rapidly that's playing right here. It's going really fast because it's a short animation. Then I can tell it, okay, let's go ahead and run. I'm going to put this at above 2 for the player speed. And now we're playing the run animation. And we're going to talk about all of this, how this all works. And now if we go below that, any amount below that, we go right back to idle. Okay? Now the equip one played immediately when I brought this into the view. So you can see here if I go back to another gun and then go to this one, it plays right away. So we're going to talk about all of this. So let's go ahead and jump in. All right. So first things first, you need some guns to play with, right? So let's go to the project view here, and you can see I use this modern weapon pack. Modern weapons, so I go to the asset store. This is the pack that I got here. It is free to download and import into your pack, and I will be crediting this 7XF design. Thank you very much, guys. This is an awesome pack. I will put the link to get to this in the description of the video, so check for that there. And you can just click download first. It'll say download, then click import. And you'll get this, assets, modern weapons, and there's these several weapons here. I think it's actually this one. I have 2 of them. That's this guy here. Yep, AK-47, the M4A1, this thing. You have the scope, the ACOG sight, smoke grenade, the Scorpion, and the UMP. And you actually saw these last time. If I hit play and we run around the world, these are some of the weapons that I've used for our spawning system. So this right here, here's the AK-47, which comes with that pack. We can go around and look for some other weapons here. Nothing here. Over here, yep. So here's the smoke grenade that comes with that pack. And here's the sniper that comes with that pack. Okay? So these are the same weapons that I've been using. So that's where you can get them and download them. Pretty cool. Now, let's get down to brass tacks here. So I'm going to switch this out. Make this smaller, make this bigger. So here's our FPS character in the scene. There he is. FPS controller. First person character. I've done nothing else to them. Right? I have added post-processing effects for visual interest, but that's all. So now for this guy, what I'm going to do is you right-click and say Create Empty, and this will create an empty game object that we're going to name Weapon Slots, just like this, capital W, space, capital first S. And you'll notice that its values are 0, and I put it at a negative 0.8 for the Y. I just brought it down just a little bit, and then 0 for the Y, for the Z. You can put 0, 0, 0 if you want. For me, this is just the position I put this in. And then ignore these two here. We're not going to talk about the coding today, but this is where we're going, okay? I'm still working that part out just a little bit. So this is just a holder object for where all of our weapons are going to be on our character. So then we're going to create some other underneath of this guy now. Same thing we just did. Right-click on this guy, though, and say Create Empty. And I'm going to name these for the different weapons that you have, all right? So I have pistol, I have AK-47, I have a rifle, a shotgun, and a sniper. And for these, this is kind of salt to taste, and I'll show you why. So for the rifle started out at 000. And then I put the weapon in there and put the scope on it. And then if you look at your game view, then I went back to the rifle, and we're only dealing with the actual slot. We're going to be animating the slot, and you can animate anything underneath, but I'll show you that in a moment. But I selected this rifle slot, and then to get it positioned in the screen here, I did values over here. So this is just what I ended up with. It's up to you. I wanted it to kind of point at the center of the screen, which I have this little square in the center of the screen to show me where to point to, which it's not doing right now because it doesn't idle at the center of the screen. But I just kind of messed around with this because if you look at the pistol is a little bit different because it's smaller. It's going to be at a different position in the screen. So if we untag that, you can see it's there. So it has to be in a different position because it's a different size. So don't worry about if your values are different here, but just know that you're going to select the slot and you're going to change these values for the transform to move it around and get it settled as to where you want. See, like this, as I move it around here. So you can use the screen on the left here to kind of position it over here. Okay? Perfect. So now that we have all of that set up, then you can import each weapon into your slot. So again, if you open up the rifle slot, literally underneath of it is just the model. So I went in here to the model, and you go to the model itself right here, and you just say, there's my slot, drag and drop into there. And there it is. Now, because of the way that these models were created, this guy, you might need to, you might need to rotate him a little bit, and you might need to move him a little bit within your slot now to make sure that it's setting exactly where you want. But by moving those two in conjunction, so what I would say is get the model in here first, position it, then you can position the actual slot and get it shifted around the way you want it. Now you can have both of them set up exactly what you like. But keep in mind, we're going to be animating the slot at the end of things, okay? So then everything underneath here can just be, it's all visual. So for example, if I wanted to take off the ACOG, we could just hide that. And now if we look at the scene, we have a gun without the ACOG. So this is how you would do something like if you want to add attachments later on. You have a script that has a call out to this to say, when I pick this object up, unhide it. It was there the whole time. And then you can change the way that your animations work. But for now, we're just going to deal with the base weapon as it is. Cool. Okay, so now that it's done, we're going to have to start animating it. So I'm going to start with a completely blank weapon here that I haven't animated yet. And I'm going to show you how to do that. But first, let me just show you where we're going. We're going to get to that. So if I bring up the animation, you'll see that mine already looks like it's got values in it because it's already got an animation here. And I'm going to go over all these animations with you. So this is what it's going to look like. We're going to be able to scrub here, and you're going to be able to preview your animation, and you're going to be able to set all these values. So here we're doing the position and the rotation of our rifle slot in order to get this animation here. And it looks a lot more complicated than it is. I'm going to show you an easy way to do that. Then here we're going to be able to look at all the animations for that slot. And I want to keep a good naming convention with you guys. So make sure you name your animations weapons underscore the slot, so rifle, underscore, and then the name of the animation. And we're going to be making just these 8 or so animations to begin with for today. We've got equip fire, which is like a hip fire, idle, run, start run, scope, and scoped fire. Okay? So this is all the ones that we're going to be creating today. Now you can create additional ones, depends on what you need, like a reload or a melee, that kind of thing. I'll show you where those would fit into this hierarchy. Alright, so with that done, what we're going to do is then go over to the animator, and now we have all these animations for this thing, which we'll be able to drag and drop into here. And now here's how we control everything. So at the beginning of the play state, when this thing is selected, it's going to go to entry, and it's going to say, travel this direction to this thing. There's no criteria, just do it. And it's going to immediately play our animation called weapons, rifle, equip. So if we go to the animation, here's the weapons, rifle, equip. And if I click play to preview that, this is what it looks like. And it's looping because of the nature of it. Cool. All right. So it's going to play that one time, and then I have an arrow here to say keep going. And the conditions, you see it says list is empty. That means there's no conditions. You can just keep going, and you're going to go right into the idle. Perfect. We want it to idle. So let's take a look at the idle animation real fast. So idle and hit play. And it's just a real slow, see it's 12 seconds long. And it's just kind of, meandering back and forth. We're just kind of sitting here waiting to do something. Perfect. All right, so we're going to go here. We're going to sit here until one of these conditions is met. And the way that you make these conditions, you just right-click on these and say Make Transition. And you'll see it gives you the little arrow, and you click where you want it to go. And then you give it criteria. So, for example, from idle to hip fire, if we want to start shooting, I right-clicked, made transition, clicked here. And so then I click on this one, and I say I want to give it a condition. So we're going to create a variable over here, and I'm going to call it bFire, which means we're B for Boolean, true or false. We're in the firing state. If that's true, from idle, I want to go to hip fire, if that's true. And then to go back, I just say, hey, I'm not running, and I'm not firing. So we'll get to that. Then to scope in, it's if the scoped, be scoped, the value is true, then we go over to scope. And then if we're in scoped, and, if we're in scoped and we start shooting, go to scoped fire. Then if we're in scoped, but we're no longer shooting, go back to just regular scoped in. And then if we're no longer scoped in, so on this return trip here, if we're no longer scoped in, then go back to just idle. And that's kind of how it all works. The only caveat is some of this gets a little crazy in here. So let me talk about this, and then we'll do the animations, and we'll hook it all up, and you'll see how it works. But this requires a little bit of conversation. So the idle here, if we want to start running, what we're going to do is this value here, player speed. We want to monitor the player's speed and know that when they get to a point where now they're running, they're moving fast enough, we need to be able to read that value from here. So on this condition, if the player's speed is greater than, for the moment I have just 2 as a number. We'll see what we determine later on. Then we're going to start running. Now we need to have a start run animation and then a run, because if we look at our animations, and I go to the run animation, look at this. It's very just, we're running back and forth, back and forth. And it's great and all, but the problem with this is if you pop from just, say, the equip state, if you pop from here to just running, it's just going to snap, and it looks kind of weird, right? So we fix that with a start run, which you'll notice start run is very quick as well. It just begins here, and it quickly moves to the beginning of the run state. And it seems like a really simple thing. Look how fast it is. So it seems like it's a really quick little thing, but it adds so much smoothness to it. So that's what we're going to go with. All right. So to do this, if we are beginning to run, we're over that value. Then play this animation one time. Then the only condition here, we are going to add a condition that we're still running, because this will prevent us from running and stopping all of a sudden. We don't want to play the animation unfairly. So if we're still running, then go to rifle run. And this is one of the only animations in our whole set, other than the firing, that is set to loop. Then we're in the idle run, or we're in the rifle run rather. So now, if we start shooting, go to hip fire. So we can run and hip fire, no problem. Then if we're hip firing and we stop shooting, but we're still running, go back to start run. So that's what this arrow is this way. And we'll go over this again, don't worry. So this means that we're running. I start shooting, and then I stop shooting. Well, I should go back to running, but I have to transition from hip firing to running, which means we need to go to start run and back to run. But if we are running and we just stop running, that's this condition. If our speed becomes less than 2, go back to idle. And there you go. It's not all that complex, but it looks like it at first. But if you just think it out, it makes perfect sense. All right, so enough jibber-jabbering. Let's go ahead and make some values and make some stuff. So to make these variables here, it's very simple. This little plus symbol here. You just click and say what kind of a parameter do you want. Do you want a trigger? Do you want an integer? Do you want a float? Do you want a Boolean? So we're going to use Booleans for the most part. And I'm going to use a float to keep track of the player's speed. And we'll be hooking this all up later, but for now we've created these so that we have it in mind for later for the code, and we can kind of test it. So we have bScoped is a Boolean, and so you just say new Boolean, boop, like that, and see I can call it B tutorial, whatever, right? So you call it bScoped, and that will be whether or not we are scoped in. bFire is whether or not we're shooting, and then player speed is going to be a float. So I just did float. Call it player speed. There you go. So you can just do that and leave that alone. We're all set. Now note that there is an animate tour. When you click on the rifle slot and you start creating animations, it will create an animate tour for this, and it will be this controller called rifle slot. So that's perfect. It has the same name as our object. We want that. So this is the thing that controls everything that the rifle does. So now let's jump over to another weapon and start making some animations. All right, so which gun do we want to animate together? I started doing some on the sniper, so I'm not going to worry about that. Let's just jump over to, say, the shotgun. We haven't done anything with the shotgun at all. So here he is. Cool. All right. So first up, I'll show you how we can adjust the positioning of this guy a little bit. So he's kind of pointing towards that dot, which I like. I am going to bring him down just a little bit. Something like that. Just so that, ideally you're going to have a hand here. And maybe let's move him over just a little bit and rotate him in just a little bit. So something like that. There you go. So it's kind of pointing into the distance at this 0 point. And it's a little bit, shifted. So now I'm going to click on shotgun slot, and then down here you notice that my animation tab, which if you don't have this up, it's under window, animation, so Control 6 would bring this up. I have the slot selected. You'll see down here it says to begin animating, click create. We're going to create a clip. So an animation clip is each animation that we make inside of Unity. So I'm going to say create. And remember, we're going to go to our assets. I'm going to just put it into the folder. See, here's all my other animations. So I'm going to follow the same schema. Weapons. So this is going to be shotgun, just like that. And then let's call this equip. So this is going to be our equip animation. So this is what it starts off looking like. There's nothing here. And we have to add a property of the shotgun that we want to animate. So we want to animate its position and its rotation. So I'm going to say add property, transform, position, click the little plus. Add property, transform, rotation, click the little plus. Cool, now you have these little diamonds, and these are key points. So this is a pointing animation where it's going to be a certain value, and this is a pointing animation that's going to be another value. Right now they're the same, so we're gonna change those. Technically, you can go to each of these, and then you can alter the values. You can go in here and set numbers and all that, but screw that noise. There's a much easier way to do it. I'm going to turn on the auto keyframing here. So enable keyframe recording mode. This is popular on a lot of softwares, Maya, Max, Blender. You'll see it all over the place for modeling, to do animations out of a modeling program. Same thing here. We're going to turn on this. So now, the goal here is we kind of have to work backwards. So at the end of this 1 second animation, that's what this represents, 0 time to 1 second. We want the shotgun to be out here and settled. But at the beginning, we want it to be kind of off to the side, like we put it on maybe like a strap that's wrapped around our body, and we're going to just like push it down and out of our view. So one trick I do is with animation, there's a lot of things where you want to see things kind of settle, and it's called secondary animation, it's called follow through, there's a lot of terms for it, where the gun will come out and kind of bounce and settle, right? So we're going to do that kind of thing. So I'm going to go here and I'm just going to say right click, copy component. That's going to get all these values. I'm going to come here to like the 45 mark, and I'm going to say, let's see, I want to paste this, so let's copy these values. So copy these, Control C, come here, Control V, there you go. So those are exactly the same. Now somewhere in here, like here, I'm going to change this a little bit. So we're going to just put the cursor here, like that, and then here I'm going to just move the gun up a little bit, move it up a little bit, and I'm going to rotate it up a little bit, I'm going to move it forward just a little bit. Okay, now you notice I did all of that. You notice how these are all dark because this is turned on. All this is dark because it's recording what I'm doing. So now as I scrub, you see that it kind of settles. So the gun will get pulled out and it will settle. Okay, and we can kind of fiddle with this a little bit. So now let's go to the very beginning of the whole animation, and we want the gun to be put away. So we kind of get behind my character here and say, okay, I want it down and off to the right, right? So I'm going to animate. I'm going to rotate it down. Move it forward, down and off to the right, bring it forward a little bit more. What I want to do is put it kind of like this. There you go. Because now, when I scrub forward, you'll see what's going to happen. The gun's going to come out. So, boom. Perfect. So, if you want to follow some of my values here, this guy right here, I've got him animated. Negative 0.069, 0.58, 0.29, negative 0.008, 48.6 degrees, and 32.9 degrees. It just kind of puts them down and off to the right. Very cool. So I'm going to turn off recording mode. And now if you just watch over here, and if I hit play, you'll see our animation here. So pull out the shotgun. It even does that little, shotgun type motion. Now we can make this faster if we want. So I'm going to scale these in by a whole bunch. So let's do this. Let's make it real quick like this. Make the whole thing only half a second long. There you go. Much faster, right? Boom. Okay, now watch what happens when I now go over to my animator. All of a sudden I have this whole space set up for me and all these values, and so I'm going to move this around. So you'll notice that just like with our other gun, the entry goes right into this animation, weapons, shotgun, equip. And now the problem is if I hit play and we're going to run around and I'm going to pull out my shotgun like this, it's playing the equip over and over again. I just want it to equip once and that's it, right? So how do we get that to happen? Well, right now it's calling to this animation, which if you remember where we put this, under my assets, I made a folder called Weapons Part 1 because this is Part 1 of the weapons tutorial. We're going to go in here and we have all of our animations, and all of these things are animations. And because we have good naming structure, I know this weapons_S is most likely what I'm looking for. I click that, yep. Weapons, shotgun, equip, and this loop time, I'm going to uncheck that. So now this is not a looping animation. This is a static animation. It plays once. So now if I look at my animator here and I have my shotgun slot selected and I click play, now when I pull out my shotgun, it's going to play once and stop. So now I can run around with my shotgun. Very cool. Say okay. Now you'll notice that my shotgun, if I go up to a wall, it's not poking through the walls. It's not poking through it. It looks correct, like I'm standing against the wall holding a shotgun, right? I'm not looking into this box or anything like that. Well, out of the gate, yours is going to do that. It's going to look into the wall, and I'll show you what I mean. So if I hit stop and we go to the shotgun, and you'll notice that it's on a layer called weapons. I'm going to change that to something else and say, yes, change. Change it to default layer. Now watch what happens. So hit play. And if I pull out my rifle, it works properly. Pull out my shotgun, look at that. The shotgun's like going into the column. It's like, be able to go through matter. What's wrong with that, right? It's a rendering problem where the camera is rendering from a minimum distance to a maximum distance and the shotgun is extending beyond that. So to fix that, we have a separate camera that just looks at our weapons. And it's really handy because if you want to do something like a cutscene where you don't see the weapons at all, then it's a good way to get rid of those as well. So I'll show you how this works. So for all of your weapons, which you can just go to the weapons slots, and this is a good one. If you create a weapons layer, and if you don't have one yet, you can click add layer here and just add it to the list, and then click back over here, and you can drop down and choose weapons. And it's going to ask you, hey, you're about to change something, a layer on this object, and it has a bunch of children. Do you want to change all the children to the same tag? And you say, yes, I do. Now, if I look at my shotgun slot, it has the weapons tag. Very cool. So now, that's part one of the solution. Part two of the solution is underneath our weapons slot. So it's going to be underneath first-person camera, but it's a sibling of weapon slot. So right-click on first-person camera and choose camera, and then call this weapon camera. Okay, just like this, capital W, capital C, space in between. We're going to change the clear flags to depth only, change your culling mask to weapons. So it's only going to look at weapons, right? Change our near clipping plane to 0.01. The far can be anything. I just left it at default, which is 1,000. But put its depth to 1. So if you notice, that's on 1. And if I go to my first person character, which is the thing that has the camera on it, its depth is 0. So what this means is that the weapon is being rendered on a layer above the background. So if you were to have this background be a piece of paper and your shotgun was a cutout, and you just put a cutout on top of this piece of paper, that's the order it's going to render these things on. So then when we go into the world, it's rendering the world, but then it's rendering our gun second. So technically this should be poking into the wall, but it doesn't because of the way that we have the cameras rendering. And then helps us to fix that issue. See, I can no longer transverse matter with my shotgun. which is a great thing. We don't really want that. Okay, so with that done, let's get back to animating our shotgun. So we'll go to our shotgun slot. We got that all set. Animation. So we got one animation done. Boom. We were able to pull the shotgun out. Now what I can do is, right here at this value, I'm going to right click on the transform up here and say copy. That means I get these values exactly. So it's easy to go through all the other animations pretty quickly. So to create a new animation, once you have this up, click this drop down and say create new clip. And we're just going to give it a name. So weapons, shotgun, and let's call this fire. Now technically this should be hip fire, but there's only really, you don't really scope a shotgun. You could ADS and that kind of thing. But we'll just do it this way. There we go. So position, add property, transform, rotation, just in case. And then let's start animating. And we want this to be pretty short. This is going to be a really short animation, so like half a second. So basically the shotgun's going to come back. It might buck upward a little bit and then settle back forward. So this one's already set. So the main push of this should be right about here. So I'll go to like just about the 10 mark, a little bit before. And let's go back and towards us like that. There we go. And then I'm going to animate it to come up a little bit. And then animate it up a little bit too. And there you go. So it's going to go boom. Just like that. This is a short animation, so we just hit play. Like that could be good enough. But what we could do is we could say boom. And then right before it settles, I'll copy this and bring it forward just a little bit. Something like this. And I'll just bring it a tad bit too far forward. And you'll notice the little settling it gives it at the end there. Just kind of a little. Very nice. There you go. And that's it. And just quick animation. Let's go to our animator and see how things are going. So again, this is our fire state. So if we look at our rifle as a reference here, so we have to create an idle. So our fire state is going to be down here. We're not going to have it scoped in for this example, so this could be this right half. So we go over to shotgun and say, okay, we have a state in between here that we still need to create, which is the idle. Okay, easy enough. Shotgun, new clip, weapons, shotgun, idle. Ooh, there we go, idle. Boom. Very cool. Now, I'm just going to do this really quickly, because you can get the idea from here. It's not really that difficult. Add property, rotation, boom. Start animating. So now this should be a longer animation. So I'm just going to scroll out here a little bit. I'm just mouse wheeling down. I'm going to drag this out to about 4 seconds. And here's where I just do a little bit of a bob. So if you pick about 4 spots, so it's going to be, this is going to be an up spot, and this will be a down spot. Let's bring it down just a little bit. There we go. And copy this and go up, down, paste. And let's grab this, copy, and go paste, paste. There we go. Grab this, copy, somewhere here, paste. Now if you look at this, it's just going to be a little bit of a gentle bob, like you're just waiting or breathing. And if you want to make this more realistic, quote unquote, you just have to stretch it out a bit. So let's go out to like 12 seconds here. I'm just going to stretch everything out. So I'll just drag. I'm just dragging from the top of this and dragging out. So if we just kind of even this out a bit, and actually if you are less accurate with this, it's better, because that unnaturalness that it feels in here makes it more natural in truth. So if you hit play, you'll see now it looks very natural. We're just kind of bobbing and waiting. And the only other thing that I did with mine was I did some left and right to it. So this first part here, I'll come all the way to here, and I'm going to just pull it to the right just a little bit. And then for the downs, I'm going to pull it to the left just a little bit. There you go. So now if you copy and paste these over top of themselves, so copy, go to this spot, paste, go to this spot. Especially the first and last one have to be the same, because in order for it to loop, paste, paste, and paste. There you go. Now if we hit play, you can see it just has this little bit of a sway to it. You know, just kind of a waiting state. Oh, it looks like I messed something up there. There we go. Let's take a look back. Hit play. What did I miss? Maybe, oh, I see. I've got 2 of them in the same spot here. You see that? So I'll just delete that. Grab this again. put it in there. I did the same thing here. I did too many there. So grab one of those, paste it in there. Try to create just one set. I've got 2 sets here. So I probably need to just, stretch those out. So you can scroll wheel in and out, and you can see that you can kind of see it looks a little thick. There you go. It's nice and easy to fix this. And it's super variable, and you can just go back and forth, and you can iterate. Even if you've got it in production and you say, oh, I still don't like how it's a little too rough or something doesn't work nicely, then you can just change this up. Okay, so real quickly, we're not going to finish out all these animations because you guys have seen how this works, but let's go to the animator here. I do want to show you creating the variables and getting these all hooked up. So from equip to idle is a quick, so we right click and say make transition to idle. There you go, so automatically idle. And idle we will leave as a looping animation because we want that. However, our fire animation we don't want. So let's go in here and find that. Weapon fire, uncheck loop. There we go. Animator. So we're going to right click and say make transition to fire. Now, as it is right now, it'll just go through all of them together. So if we hit play, I'll show you real fast. It's going to take a few seconds for it to go through the whole thing, but if I get to my shotgun, it comes out, it did the animation, now it's doing the idle animation. There you go, you can see it kind of bobbing there, and it's about halfway done. And in a moment here, it's going to fire, right here, it's going to fire. Just one time, and it stops, because that's what it's supposed to do, right? So let's make a couple changes. So we're going to click here and say we want Boolean, be fire, there we go. Now we want to say that this transition is only going to take place if be fire is true. Very cool. Then we're going to transition immediately back because we don't want it to be true. This is going to be a little bit harder. We're going to have to do this in code to say once this variable is true, then we're fire, and then when we're done, we just go straight back. You'll see the problems with this. So a couple problems up front. So if I bring up my shotgun and I'm going to escape to get mouse control, if I click be fire, it's still continuing. It's still going to go. And like, what the hell? I want you to fire. I want you to shoot the gun. I don't want to wait until I finish a whole monologue to fire, right? And you see it goes right back into idle. That part works nicely, but why did it take so long? Well, that's actually in the transition here. So if we open this up, we can say here that it has a couple of settings. One of this is exit time, which means it will finish an animation to a certain time before it goes on to the next one. Well, I'm going to uncheck that and say, no. The transition duration, 0.01. I want this thing to go as fast as possible as soon as I tell you that this condition is true. I don't want to wait till the exit time, which is 10 seconds here. It's the length of the animation. No, just do it right away. Okay, cool. So now if we hit play, you'll notice something really cool is I bring out my shotgun and I hit escape to come over here. No matter where it is in this time, as soon as I click fire, it's going to go and shoot. And now because fire is still true, and this is the part we have to work out in code, I'm just going to keep shooting. So this is the equivalent of holding down the left mouse button and just running through the level. Bam, 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 bam. Because I'm telling it, keep shooting, which means it keeps interrupting the idle animation right away and says, nope, we got to go fire, and then we come right back. Because this transition has no criteria. It just says, nope, go straight back. Play your animation fully, the exit time, and then go right back. And that's all it's going to do. So we can just run around blasting fools back and forth. So there you go. So, okay, so this is the beginning of a beautiful thing. We've got a lot going on here, guys. I want to leave you with that because I don't want to give you too much all at once, but you've seen all of these setups here that we're going to do, and we're going to go over this more in complete depth once we have the code in here and all these things, but I showed you the values, kind of explained how they work, and again, once we have the coding in here, and these values are going to have live data, and we'll do things like left and right click and all that sort of thing. This will make a lot more sense, but I wanted to show you the concept, get you familiar with creating your own animations. You see how easy it is, how nice and simple it is to tweak everything. If you have any questions about this, it's pretty simple. Don't forget, you have to create a new clip from here and name it properly. And if you name everything all set up, you got all this set up, you can have as many weapons as you like. For now, you're not going to be able to cycle through weapons like I am here, because again, I'm using that script from Brackeys. If you look up his tutorial, you can probably figure it out for yourself. It's pretty simple. But what you can do is, over here, all I was doing in the beginning is just hiding or unhiding. So if I have this object and I put the shotgun away, then without any coding that's attached here, if I turn this off, without any coding, it's just going to be the one weapon that is there because that's all that's there, right? So you can do it kind of simple for now, and then we'll apply the coding together later on. So yeah, so that's what we have for now, guys. I hope that you've enjoyed very much. We're getting into the weapons. I thank you for your patience. I know it's been a lot going on. I've had lots of new things going on, and I'm trying to get it all organized for you and give you amazing content, and I want it to be well thought out. I want it to work, and I want to make sure you guys have a good time. So thank you again for your patience, and until next time, guys, keep practicing, get better, and I'll see you next time as the pilgrimage continues.